What is up? What is up, everybody? Welcome to another episode of Your Girl. We are here with another episode of Tweet Talks, and we have a special guest with us today. We have Mr. Wize Otero. Yes, I probably screwed that up, but he'll jump in there and
You're thinking too
get it
much. You're
right.
thinking too much. You're thinking too much right now.
And he
Yeah,
is the podcast host for. You hear me? Okay. He's a podcast host for the Stuck in My
that's
Mind
one.
podcast,
There we go.
and we are glad to hear you today. So what's up? How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm doing good. How you doing today?
I am doing well. I'm glad to have you.
Pleasure's all mine.
Okay. So, I got a first question I got for you. I know we did an episode not too long ago on your podcast. So, the first question I have for you is when we think of the name of your podcast, which I thought was quite interesting, is there a story behind that?
Yes. It has to do more with I had wanted to start a podcast for over a year, and at first it was going to be a sports podcast. Me and my homeboy, and then the next thing you know, him and his girl get pregnant, so he couldn't do the podcast, and then 2020 comes. I have the equipment at home. I get furloughed from work, but now I'm just making up excuses to why I shouldn't start my podcast. And so when I finally decided to press record and upload it, stuck in my mind came that was the name that came to my head because I had been stuck in there for so long. So
Mm. Yeah, I kind of was, when I first heard the name, I thought it was really interesting because that's something that a lot of times, a lot of us podcasters get stuck in our mind, and that's how we end up being podcasters. And then we find, some real great things about ourselves and even how we can help other people from podcasting, and we kind of get out of our minds. A lot of us podcasters are big thinkers. Have you noticed that?
I find myself thinking a lot and always coming up with some new ideas. And at first I didn't really think of myself as a creative person, and then I started podcasting, and then I started doing all these different things. I started graphic designing. I started creating logos, intros, outros, all these different things.
So I know a lot of our viewers, this is probably the first time he's been on our podcast, but I'm going to brag on him really quick because if you have not, I'm going to allow him at the end. He's laughing. I'm going to allow him at the end to tell you guys about his podcast and how you can find it. But he has some really awesome graphics at the beginning. I mean, it's like for all the other podcasters that may be watching, he is, his podcast is actually a whole experience. If you're not ready for it, the lights, camera, action starts, and it is showtime. So I always tell him he has a lot of graphics on his podcast. So I know you've been in podcasting for about 4 years. Okay, that's
Yes.
probably about the time frame that you've been in podcasting. So during your time, can you think of any guests that you would label as your favorite, or without names, which podcast guests would have been labeled as your worst? Maybe with telling the experience.
Mm, I prefer to rather go with the positive aspect of it. So I'll give you a couple of my favorites. I'm a big wrestling fan, and towards the beginning of my show, I got to interview a WWE Hall of Famer,
Oh
and that
wow.
was a great experience. It was a great experience because being a man of color and getting to speak to one of the greatest members of one of the greatest tag teams of all time, which was Harlem Heat, Stevie Ray, and it was a great experience because, like I said, this is a man of color who one of the greatest tag teams of all time, and I got to be a fanboy and speak to him. And the crazy thing was he didn't really want to speak too much about wrestling, but we did get into talking about wrestling. But I also know that he was a major part. Major part of him was giving back to his community. So he gave to the Boys and Girls Club, and he's always doing stuff to give back to the community. So we spoke a lot on that, and it was just a great experience.
Oh wow. Now, I'm not a big wrestling fan, but Booker T happens to
That's
be
his
my
brother. That's his brother.
Oh, oh wow. So that
TV
might be
Ray.
something I had to. Yeah, I gotta go
Yeah.
back and check that out because, like I said, I'm not big on wrestling, but I've always been through the years a big Booker T fan.
Mhm. So
Yeah, because
Stevie
I think
Ray is
he.
one half of Harlem Heat, and Booker T's the other half. Yeah.
Oh, okay. I guess that's why that name kind of stuck out to me. That was like, okay, that
hmm
sounds like. I couldn't really remember because I'm more of a Netflix person now. Um, okay, so with your podcast, what would you say is your target audience? And is your target audience being reached? Have you been successful at reaching your target audience?
When I first got into it, I didn't really have a niche. I was just interviewing everyone, but then within the last 2 years, I kind of niched it down and focused more on talking to coaches, entrepreneurs, fellow podcasters, and so I've really geared more to the self development side of people and everything. So it's been great because actually I've learned so much.
Yeah, I feel the same way. I've learned a lot about podcasts and specifically about myself. Um,
Mhm.
I've learned a lot about different people, and I guess everybody has some type of outlet in life. I guess when you think about, like, even when you think about wrestling, you think about, those wrestlers. They get something personal out of it. People only do things that they really love and go hard at it when it's something that they really enjoy. And I tend to feel like that about podcasting. Okay, so what are some of your favorite topics to discuss, if any? Do you have something that you just kind of, because I know for me and my podcast, love, relationships, and real life is my thing. I love talking about it. I love talking to people with different experiences about it. I love meeting people that have some type of insight to add to my life and other people's lives. So, do you have anything in particular that you truly, really enjoy talking about with podcasting?
I just like people to come on and talk about their life experience and talk because everyone has a story, right? Um,
Yeah, definitely.
so for people to come on and share their stories and other people to realize that hey, we might not be on the same path, whatever it is, but some of us have similar experiences, and we just got to hear those stories sometimes.
Okay, that's definitely true. I'm hoping to expand out and meet people with different situations. Somebody it's great when you turn on a podcast and you listen and there's a guest on there that's talking about something that kind of wows you or it makes your light bulb come on or it makes you think
I've
differently.
I've had people on. I had this one dude come on, and he had a brain aneurysm twice, and so he had to learn how to speak again.
Yeah.
And then he ended up starting his own business and all that. And you could still, even when we did the interview, you could still see and hear that he was still suffering from the effects of that aneurysm. So when you have people like that on your show where they can share the inspirational stories and let people know, like, regardless of what going through or what you're going through, you can still get, still overcome it and turn your life around.
Oh yeah, definitely. Those are the best for me when I hear stories like that because you know most people think that we're just sitting here with mics and we're just talking, but there's a lot of power in podcasting because you reach a lot of audiences. One of my favorite podcasts when I really, really started podcasting was Ayanla Van Zant, Fix My Life. Actually, I used to
Fix my
watch the
life.
shows. Yeah, you did? Did you watch her?
Yeah, I've watched her show. I love her
Yeah.
show. When Fix My Life. Yeah.
Yeah. And one of the things that she used to do is she would find like people that had families, especially that had so many issues, and it kind of was like, it makes you look at your certain situations in your life and you think that it could be worse, and you're like, these people are living in hell. And it was like it's possible to overcome it. So I think that was really important for me in podcasting. So a lot of people say that podcasting is just a thing, it's a hobby. However, you and I have had conversations about the benefits of podcasting. So,
Mhm.
what does your bus podcasting do for you?
It's my therapy. It's really it gives me an outlet to be myself. When I'm on doing my show, I'm myself. I don't change from anything. I'm still the laid back person that I'm usually am, and so it gives me an opportunity to really express myself. Sometimes if I got something on my chest, or to me, like I said, for me, it's really more therapeutic than anything.
Yeah, it definitely is. It's my soft spot, and I'm kind of like always, a lot of people have addictions to Amazon and shopping, and which I love those things. But I'm always looking for podcasting equipment. you know, it's to the point where you put one word in and everything else kind of just comes in, and you're like, oh yeah, well, I need to get that too. That's pretty neat. Always looking to try and make it better somehow. Yeah, so
I just
that's
updated my
a big
camera
thing.
recently, so
Oh, see, you're always looking for something. Look, something new. I think as you know, I'm struggling with this green screen thing. And I'm hoping
yeah.
that this week we have some special editions tonight and Sunday, so I'm hoping that I'll get it fixed by then. And it's the little things, some people like to go shopping and we like to podcast, and but it's a good thing because it's helpful to other people and it's helpful to yourself. It's very therapeutic for me. This is my place to be me. This is
Yeah,
my non-judgmental zone.
it's my safe space. Yeah,
Yeah, definitely.
and really, for me, I invest in myself. Like, so when I first started podcasting, and I realized that this was something I love to do. I didn't know that I would fall in love with podcasting, and that it would give me my purpose, because
Yeah.
I was 40 something years old, didn't know really what my purpose in life was. And so when I was able to start my podcast and started interviewing people, and started having people message me that, hey, thank you for that episode, or whatever it was, or something that they heard on one of my shows, or it showed me that, all right, I can make an impact on people's lives. Like,
Yeah.
I'm getting people who I haven't heard from in years, and they watch an episode, and that episode resonated with them.
Mm.
So they'll send me a message and be like, thank you. I needed to hear that. One of my favorite episodes, and the reason it's one of my favorites is because of the impact it had on the person I interviewed. So I had done an interview for a friend of mine. She's a friend now, because we've had I've interviewed her twice already, and we've been communicating for years now. And so, Federica Brezin, she came on early on in the podcast. That was my first year, and then I had her on 2 years later, but I didn't release the episode till like a year after we recorded the show, and for some reason it got lost in all the episodes that I've been doing and everything. And so when I finally released it, she messaged me, and she was like, "Is that the episode we did a year ago?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, it just took you so long." She's like, "No, you don't understand. I read the descriptions, and the picture you took for the thumbnail, she's like, which is one of my favorites. And then all the wonderful things you were saying about me and all this." She's like, "I haven't been feeling that way.
Mm.
And for me to read this on your descriptions, and you talk about me so well, and all these words. Like, thank you. She's like, I
Yeah.
needed that. I needed, and I'm like, that's one of the very few times where our episode guest benefited from their own episode.
Yeah. So one of the things that I realized, I'm glad you mentioned that. One of the things that I struggle with when I'm giving a bio is I have a lot of information to put, but a lot of us want to have a large bio. Well, for someone that does have one, it's interesting because I struggle with being transparent on the bio part. It's interesting because most people wouldn't have issue with that. I have an issue with the bio part, but not an issue with the transparency of having a conversation with a guest. So I think that's
What do you mean that
interesting
with the
that when you
bio
can
part?
look
What do you
at a
mean?
piece of paper and well, because when you are talking, a bio is basically giving your own accolades.
Yes.
That's what a bio is. A bio is giving the accolades that somebody else would give you. You're giving it to yourself. It's almost like, without going too deep into it,
I
it's
know what a
almost like
bio is.
prayer.
I know what a bio is. My thing
Yeah.
was, what do you mean you struggle with it? Like, you don't, because I know, because when you gave send me your bio,
Yeah.
you didn't want to discuss part of your career, and I
Right.
respect that. I respect that because it's your life and your choices. So so what do you mean as far as that, or
Well, just I guess not just that, just my life in general. It's just difficult to, it's like, you just, I don't know. I struggle with it. I have to look into why, but I have difficulty with that. As far as my career, I don't like to get too many questions about that. But otherwise, when it comes to my life, my education, I just have difficulty with that. But it's probably both are tied together, and that's why it's difficult to do. So when I see a person that is able to, just like you're speaking about the guest you had, was able to write like a whole bio and give all that information freely, I always I give my accolades to that person because that's something that I find difficult to do, to write down on a piece of paper your life and what you've done, and it's just a difficult thing. So whenever you run into a guest that kind of makes you understand why I do that, let me know. Then I'll learn something else about myself.
it, it's you having to get comfortable with yourself, like with what is it that you're willing to
Yeah.
let people know about you. And that's what you put into the bio. It's like, this is what I want people to know about me, and you don't necessarily have to put everything about your, like when I first started, right? I didn't tell everybody about that I was widowed at 31,
Mm.
and but then when I did share my story, people were like, "Yo, you need to share your story more often."
Yeah.
Because people need to hear the fact that at the age of 31, I lost my wife to a car accident, and this is someone I had been with my whole adult life. Like, I had been with my wife since I was 20, 21 years old, and so when I lost her at 31, it it it, it, it hit hard. I was lost for a few years. I was self destructive. I was drinking and just trying to numb the pain. And then it was just like one tragedy after another. After I lost my wife, I reunited with my dad, only to have him pass away. And then I buried two brothers, an uncle, an aunt, and it was just like boom, boom, like one after another, one after another. So there was a point where I was angry. I was angry
Yeah.
with God's spirit, whatever it is that you want to, because I'm not a religious person. I'm a spiritual person. I do believe in a higher power. And so I was angry. I was like, why, God? Why me? Am I such a bad person that all this is happening to me? And so I had to get really come and realize that it wasn't happening directly to me. It was just life. Life happens. And it wasn't that I guess when you know how they say he wouldn't put in he wouldn't
Put
put it
more
on
on
me if
you
he
than
didn't
you
think I
can
was
bear.
if he didn't think I was strong enough to handle it.
Yeah.
So that's why I kind of like when that started sinking in, and I'm starting to realize that he wouldn't this wouldn't be something that he wouldn't feel that I couldn't handle. So I had to realize that and really see that it wasn't really happening directly to me. Yes, it was happening, but it wasn't that he was punishing me.
Yeah.
It wasn't that I was. It was just life. Life. This is what happens, and this is a part of life. And so when I that voice in my head told me, "Hey, listen, this isn't your purpose. This is what you're here for. You're not here to be drunk in a drunken stupor and being stupid and sleeping around and not caring anything about you or anyone else. This is not your purpose. This is not your life." And so when that voice hit me, and I kind of like, yeah, this isn't my path. So I kind of went, sought help, started seeing a therapist, cut back, stopped drinking, started just focusing more on building myself back up and getting back into self development, because that was one thing my wife had prepared me. She had introduced me to the world of self development. That was something that I wasn't like coming from the hood. That's not something we learned. We're not taught about growth mindset. We're not
Yeah.
taught about wanting to improve and all. We're taught you go to school, get an education,
Get by.
get a job, and retire.
Hmm.
You're not you're not taught that you need to go out there and keep growing and keep learning and start developing yourself.
Hmm.
So when I got back into self development and changing my life, things started to happen. Um, my wife that I'm with now came into my life. I went from sleeping on friends' couches and sleeping in cars and all that to reuniting, getting back with my family and really changing my life. Like I said, I met my wife now a year after dating. She's like, I moved from New York City to Pennsylvania. I've got a job at a local casino here where I'm there almost 10 years now. So I've been able to change my life around from being drunk and not really caring about anything to now I have a good paying job. I have a wife that I adore, and she loves me and she sees all the potential in me. To to now I have a podcast, which is one of the top 5 podcasts in the world.
Okay. Super dope. And I'm not surprised by any of that because I told you you're already super dope. But now I have a question. I'm glad you kind of start off that way because my larger audience is single people. And a lot of them are podcasters. And because you're married, I would like you to give some advice to some single podcasters that may be dating because I'm gonna tell you my experience. Since I have been podcasting, I find that dating tends to be can be some people look at it as being kind of like a eyesight into who I am.
Well, yeah, I'm
Whereas
sure I'm sure they're probably thinking like, is this gonna be an episode?
yeah, basically, they tend to think that every conversation is an episode. Will I be the next, not guest but topic? Is she
Yeah.
talking about me? Does that apply to me? And being a podcaster, like you said, you love it, and when you love it, you enjoy it, and you don't want dating or anybody in that dating space to come in the middle of your podcast life because it's something you love. So, what advice would you give to some of the podcasters that are single and they want to date, and they want to be open and enjoy their podcast life without being scrutinized. What type of advice would you give them? Since you're married, we want you to
Well,
tap in a little bit on that.
it's easy to me because my wife saw the passion that I have for it, right? And and goes, okay, I see that you love this. I see that you're, and my wife, she's seen one show, and that was the show I did with that I do with my homeboy. But she's my biggest fan. She hasn't seen any of my Stuck in My Mind shows. She hasn't listened to none of the audios, but she wears my merch. She's, she's very supportive, and she could have easily been like, Negro, you 40 something years old. What are you talking about? You want to start a podcast, right? But she didn't do
Right.
that. She goes, what can we do to make this into a business? What is this? What can we do, and how can we make turn something that you love into something profitable? So she helped me start the LLC.
So you didn't become a podcaster while you guys were dating.
No, we were married already, and I started the podcasting.
Okay. Oh, well, so I mean, I'm sure so have you had a situation where she's like, don't be up there telling my business, or don't be talking about what goes. Growing up, we always taught what happens in the house
It
stays in the
stays in the
house.
house. Yeah.
So
No,
yeah, so
we've had moments. We've had moments, right? That I've had to share. So there was one week she calls and she's like, I need you to take, listen to what I'm gonna say. He goes, take 15 to 30 minutes a day for the next 4 days, right? So that's 15 to 30 minutes a day for the next 4 days, and I need you to pick a section of the house and work on it and clean it up, do whatever. So okay, all right, fine, cool. So after the 4 days, she goes, so how was your 2 hours? I'm going, 2 hours. She said, yeah, remember? I said, take 15 to 30 minutes a day. And I go, yeah, you mean the hour? What do you mean an hour? You said 15 to 30 minutes, right? He says, yes. So I said, I decided to do 15 minutes. I said, had you wanted me to do 30 minutes, you should have told me you wanted me to do 30 minutes. She should have just been like, babe, I need you to do 30 minutes a day. But if you're going to give me the option, I'm going to go with the minimum amount of time. And she didn't understand my thinking. I said, what do you mean you don't understand my thinking? Your exact words were 15 to 30 minutes. I
she gave you a
decided to go
choice.
with that. That was her mistake. That's where she messed up.
Yeah.
Don't give me a choice.
Yeah. I got an interesting story about that, but yeah. So not too long ago, I had to go to my son's school, and his teacher and we actually had a conversation because I had to explain the same thing, and I think that a lot of times in an African American household, we are told to do things, and if we are not told and you give that leeway where there's an option, we're going to opt into the lesser of that option. Because that's what I explained to her. I said, when you tell him to do something, when you say to a child, I don't think you should do that, you are telling them your opinion. That's not a direct order. That is not, giving a command or anything. So you have to make sure that you are, especially making sure that when a person does not listen to you is because you've given them some instruction and no leeway of making it an option because it's a direct command. And it's funny that you said that because maybe you think it's a male thing.
Oh yeah, because every single guy I asked, they agreed with me. Yeah, now I would have did 15 minutes. I would have did the 15 minutes. And then every woman I asked, they're like, no, why didn't you just do the 30 minutes? Because she didn't ask me to do the 30 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. So is it safe to say that a man is probably gonna try and, like I said, we have a single
Don't
audience now.
give us
So a lot of
options. Don't
times
give
this
us
is our
options.
conversation.
Don't give us options. Just if you want something done, right?
Yeah.
Just be specific. You be like, if you're gonna give me options, I'm gonna go with the easy option. So if you really want me to do
Absolutely.
something, we'll be like, or I need you to do this, 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 and this. Okay, then now I understand you want A, B, C, and D done. But if you go, oh, you can do A, or you can do B, or you can do C, or you can do D, I'm gonna take one of the options.
Yeah. And then we'll kind of come into there saying, well, if you knew you needed to do A, B, C, and D, why didn't you just do them? And you're saying, well, no, you just told me.
You didn't tell me you wanted A,
You
B,
gave me
C,
one
or D done.
option.
Yeah, you didn't tell me you
Yeah.
wanted A, B, C,
That
and
that
D
goes
done.
to Yeah, that goes to show you how different men and women can be because you know how you always say men are from Venus, women are from Venus and men are from
Men from
Mars or
Mars?
something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really true because you have to be, pretty descriptive about what you're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So with your podcast, one of the things the podcasters oftentimes have in common is that we have to select guests for our show.
Yes.
Okay, so in selecting guests, how do you go about selecting a guest that's suitable for your show?
So since I've niched it down and I'm focusing more on coaches, entrepreneurs, and educators and stuff like that. So it's been easier for me to find guests because like I have my niche now. 'Cause when I first started, I was all over. I interviewed celebrities, coaches, friends, all podcasters, all type like wrestlers, all types of people. So when I've really focused on more on what I wanted my podcast to be about, it was easier for me to set the criteria of what I wanted my guests to be.
So how do you vet them? You know, when the date in the dating space. Well, I'm gonna tell you how things are out here in these streets. So there's the vetting process.
Oh no. Okay, so I have and I used to do what you do. I used to do the Facebook groups and all that, and then that's when you get all the people. So what I did, I signed up for Podmatch, and it's been the best thing I could have done because now I set a criteria, and it Podmatch uses AI to match me with guests, and so since I've been using and what's the great thing about Podmatch is they try to help independent podcasters make money. And so I pay $6 a month for Podmatch, but there's certain guests on Podmatch, and I don't charge anyone to be a guest on my show, but Podmatch is giving back to independent podcasters, and they're paying you when you interview certain guests. So anyone that you connect with on Podmatch and they're tier 2, you're getting 2%, right? But if they're tier 10, you're getting 10% commission. And this is 10% commission of whatever that person is paying Podmatch to use that platform. So every 3 months, every 4 months, I'm getting a check, a deposit into my account from Podmatch for over $100. So, like I just told you, I pay $6 a month. So if you round that up, that's like 82 a year.
Mm-hmm.
So by using Podmatch, and they're paying me every 3 or 4 months $100 and something. I'm probably making $200 and something that I wouldn't have been making if I don't use Podmatch.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I mean, you sent me the link and everything, and I started reading up. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
yeah, no. So yeah, so it's for me it's been a lifesaver to actually find, because they vet your guests and everything for you. You get to check their websites, you get to check their, because they give you everything that the guest has, their websites, their Instagram, their TikToks, everything. So now you get to see what these guests are really about. And then in some of the guests, they actually can, in their page, they can do a video, and they can tell yourself, they can tell you a little about themselves. So basically, they're doing a video bio of themselves.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, I think that's probably where I got to. That was a little confusing for me, but I'm definitely in the process of doing that because I think Pod Match is awesome. It kind of takes the stress off of you having to vet the guests and
I
see if
am
the vibe matches. Because I got stories.
I am booked into. I already have guests lined up for September. Like
Yeah.
my rest of my April, May, June, and July are booked out.
Yeah. Because I know you had to
So
squeeze me in there.
yeah, I got you in because it just happened that I got an opening this week, and I'm like, "Hey, what you doing?
Yeah.
Nothing. Hey, you want to be a guest?" You're like, "Yeah." I'm like, okay, so we made it happen. But
Right.
yeah, it's and if I've had that the last couple of weeks where I've had openings, and then I reached out to people that want to come on the show, and but like I said, I've been booked up, so I'm able to get them in when those slots, whenever they appear. I always reach out to someone that I know. I've told them that I want them to have them on the show. So
So, as far as cancellations using Pod Match, do you often have a lot of cancellations? Or
it's
these, or is it
you
pretty.
you you have some people that they reschedule. There's some people that might forget or whatever and don't show up, and it happens. That's part of the territory. Like even
Yeah.
before I was using Pod Match, I've had people ghost me. And I don't sweat it. I don't take it personal.
Yeah, because I think a lot of times too, when it comes to scheduling, it's almost like a doctor's appointment. You know, you have the doctor's appointment scheduled, and that day, if you don't have an alarm or something set to remind you, it's like, okay, well,
You
at
forget,
4 o'clock, I
yeah.
have a doctor's appointment. Yeah, 4:15. You're like, oh God, I'm supposed to go to the doctor. You start scrambling, and this is a little bit different because you have there's certain equipment that you have to have. If you are a note taker, certain notes that you want to have, you want to kind of be on board. But for the most part, every guest that I've come across has been pretty cool when it comes to just kind of jumping on. You know, I kind of like. Then he has different guests that like. I've had some guests that want to know what the questions are, or what we're going to talk about specifically beforehand. That to me is the most difficult. How do you feel about that?
I, I don't tell them. It's my show. I've had people send me questions, and I'm like, "Oh, interesting question." Yeah, I'm not gonna ask that question though, because
Yeah,
now these are
it's my
questions that
podcast. I do what I want to.
yeah, no, now you're asking them questions that they've answered before, and they feel comfortable answering. And I get it. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I want people to get to know you, and I want your answers to be more human, like more, not something where you keep repeating.
Yeah.
I want it to feel more natural. I want it to be you. And it's not like my questions are crazy. I use questions from the bio you give me or whatever it is. Like whatever bio you give me, the questions are based on that bio.
Yeah. It's so funny because I prefer Even when I'm doing my own individual episodes, I like, and if I don't have a guest, I don't really like to be scripted. I might write down some subtopics, things that I want to discuss, but I don't like to go by a script of where I'm reading something and I know what I'm going to say because, and when I first started it sounded so not me. And, when you do things that's not authentic to who you are, eventually you slip up. Eventually the real you comes out. And if you have an audience that is going along with this image, then you're going to lose them. They're no longer going to be interested because they thought that they
Yeah,
were listening to, somebody that didn't slip up and say a cuss word every now and then. You know what I mean? And you slip up and say it, and it's like, oh, delete. It's over for you. You know. So I really didn't. I don't like to do that. Now with sending questions, depends on. Recently I did an interview with a woman that was a director of a recovery home for those addicted to alcohol and drugs, and pretty much was telling her my story of how I was with someone that had those type of issues and how life went on for me and how I was able to pick up and move on successfully without being dragged down because if you know anything about recovery, a lot of times people in recovery will drag you with them because you become their enablers. And it was really interesting to me because just like I told you, it's difficult for me to talk about my bio, but when I feel like I'm speaking for a healing situation to better somebody, I'm able to do it. I'm just not able to do it, maybe to an audience that if I don't see where they have any benefit for it. But that was interesting because she was so interested she wanted to do a story on my story, and that's interesting because I never thought I would have done that. But it just goes to show you how podcasting goes from a regular, average, ordinary, microphone into ideas, into reaching a specific audience, into, reaching your purpose. Because a lot of people don't realize that, being a podcaster is, in a lot of ways, it's purpose driven, regardless of what that purpose is. And sometimes it's even to reach an audience of what you don't expect,
yeah.
you
And no,
know?
it's amazing. It's amazing, right? Because I've have some real good friends of mine that I've built relationships with from podcasting, right? And a lot of them do pop culture, entertainment. They are celebrities and all that. They do phenomenal numbers. But and I'm like, man, I wish I could do interview some of the people you interviewed, and they're like, well, yeah, it's cool and all that, but some of them look at me and they're like, we love to do what you're doing, and I'm like, what? They're like, because you're making an impact. It's not saying that they don't not making an impact because they are, because they're entertaining people and all that, but they're like, you're changing people's lives, like you're
Yeah.
bringing people on to 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 help people grow. So you're bringing people on
Yeah.
to enlighten others, and they're like, we love that. We love that fact that you are making an impact on people's lives directly.
Yeah. So we got a comment here from Shira Renee. She's one of our co-hosts on After Show Lives. And she says, we definitely will expect you to pick our option without telling us your option. So she's talking about what we were talking about earlier as far as
Yeah,
you
the 30 minutes. Yeah,
just yeah.
you
Yeah, and it's funny that you said that because a lot of men don't like to necessarily admit that they're going to pick the easier option because I guess it doesn't suit, for some men it doesn't suit well to realize that okay, you're given the bare minimum, dude, and you need to not do that anymore.
no, but that's not
But the
that
only way
wasn't
to
the point of it.
recognize
I understood what she wanted. I understood the task, but you're not gonna give me options. Because I want what I want for you is to tell me what you want me to do. So
well,
if you
okay,
wanted
is it
me, if you wanted me to do the 30 minutes, it should have just been babe, do this. Take 30 minutes a day. Do this. Do this. Do this. And it would have been done that way.
Okay, so let me tell you this. Your wife sounds like a very educated woman. So what I will tell you is that this is something that I learned being a parent to a male child. I've learned that when you give them what they think of as an option, they tend to feel like they have control. And some women, without saying your wife, may be saying, I'd like you to do this 15 to 30 minutes. 15 meaning I love you, and 30 minutes meaning I love you a lot. So, which one are you going to choose? So when you
No,
so when you
no,
chose the 15 minutes, it's a great
no.
thing that you
No.
completed the task, but
Now
you
you're trying
could
to minimize.
have.
Now you're trying to minimize my love because I didn't choose the 30 minutes.
See, that's how a man would look into it. But us women, what we're doing is we're giving you an option. And if you don't choose
But you
the
shouldn't
option
give us
that
an
we
option.
want you to choose.
Exactly. Why? If you would just give us the option that you wanted originally, which was the 30 minutes, we wouldn't go through any of that. I would have just did the 30 minutes.
Okay. Well,
Why not just be like, babe, do 30 minutes?
well, she was trying to
Okay.
give you an option. She
No,
wanted
don't
you to
give me an
feel like
option.
you were in control.
I don't need the control. I need you to tell me what you want me to get done.
Okay, so what you just said is a really big thing because a lot of men want that control. So that goes to show you the difference between you and other men. Because a
There's a
lot of
big
men, go ahead.
because first of all, when you're in a relationship, is so one thing I used to always when people be like, oh, happy wife, happy life. No, no, no. Because if you're not both happy, then it sucks.
Yeah.
So if it's happy spouse, it's happy house.
Yeah. I agree with that because I think that, well, I think the biggest thing about that is when you go into a relationship, as a man going into a relationship with a woman and telling her happy wife is happy life, that means your
No,
whole life is devoted towards making her
no,
happy while
no.
you are neglected.
Yeah, and that's just not gonna work. So because
Yeah.
if you can't feed, so if your cup is empty, how can if my cup is
Poor.
empty, how can I pour into my wife?
Yeah. Yeah.
So
That's true.
I gotta make sure that I'm okay, and then I'm able to give to her.
Yeah.
And then sometimes, again, this it was crazy. It was
I think.
crazy because what people don't realize is she's not always gonna have 50%. Sometimes she's gonna have 20%, and I gotta put in 80%. Sometimes I'm gonna have 15. She's got to put 85.
Yeah.
It's never gonna be 50-50.
But I think that
Even
nowadays,
today,
mhm. I
even
think
today,
that
right? Like,
nowadays,
go
go
ahead.
ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I think a lot of times, nowadays, when it comes to men, ego is a huge thing, and they feel like I have to be able to have that 80%. And as long as I have that 80%, then you, with your 20%, is supposed to deal with anything and everything that comes along with me because I'm putting in 80%. And to me, it's ego. And, even like we were talking about podcasts and dating, that's the biggest issue because, I find like any man that I have, had interest in or had interest in me, they listen to my content and they take it for face value, meaning if she says that she doesn't want to be with a man that's this, that means no, I'm xed out of the situation. And to me, it's ego driven. It's you have to be, you know, considered as the man, the head of the everything when it comes to a woman. And that's not necessarily the way it is. It's about two people, looking out for each other, regardless of what the situation is, equaling up to that 100%, regardless of whether it's 50 or 80. And
And I'm not ego driven.
yeah,
I'm
I can
saying
tell.
there's no ego in the relationship between me and my wife. There's no, oh, I'm the man and you're the no. There's no. It's we're partners. It's where sometimes I'm gonna be providing more, and then sometimes she might have to provide more. That's how it is. Now, if you're gonna think now, if you think that you're always gonna be the one provide, no, there's something like again, like there's times you don't have it. You just don't have it.
Yeah.
And right
But I
now
think
is the
being
time where,
honest about it.
and right now is the time, like there's times when my wife is up, right, and 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 it's wonderful, and now there's a time like right now she's not, and she's feeling a certain kind of way because she's used to being up, right?
Yeah.
But I have to still try to make her feel like when she was up.
Yeah.
It's my obligation to try to make her feel back how she was when she, because when I was down and she was up, she was lifting me up.
Yeah.
So when she's down, I gotta find out how to lift her back up with me.
Yeah. It's crazy you said that because recently I had some surgeries and I felt like a lot of people that I'll just say any male interest that was in my life at that point that should have been there to support me that did not. It's almost like I feel like you've shown me who you are because if you're dating somebody at your worst point or you get to a place where you're at your worst point and they can't survive that with you, then there's probably nothing left. There's probably nothing left because you're going to run into those negative times, you know. You're going to run into those negative times and it's the worst thing is when somebody tells you they're going to be there for you or they're going to show you that they can hold you up during the roughest time and they don't. It's like trust you with anything. As a woman, when you are dating and you're dating to marry, you want to know that that other person is reliable because a woman can't see her man as a king, as her provider, as her partner, even if he is showing inconsistency with some of the things that are not as important as life itself. You need to know that this person is able to stand by you during those tough times. And I'm gonna tell you, dating is difficult already, but being a podcaster while dating, they say like drinking while driving. It's almost like that. It's like dating and podcasting is difficult because so many people are looking to see your true personality in podcasting, realizing there's a place and there's a time, and each place and time you're going to get a different outcome. You may have a conversation with me tomorrow and it may not say and sound exactly the same today. So,
No, and like so, like I said, my wife is my biggest fan. She's my biggest supporter. She has not listened to an episode of my podcast because if there would be some occasions where I probably would have been murdered by her.
I was going to ask you that because I was talking to a friend of mine and he was saying that it's really important for anyone that he dates to be a fan of his podcast. And I was kind of like, I don't know about that. I don't really podcasting is for me.
No, no, and listen, she's like she's my number one fan. She is my number one fan. She wears my merchandise. She talks about my podcast with other people. She might not listen to it, but oh yeah, my husband's a podcast, or like she'll promote me,
Well, you
and
know
I'm
what that
okay.
means? That means that she trusts your content. I don't know
Yeah,
many women that would say, check out my husband's podcast and they don't know what the hell he's talking about. But so that's good. She trusts that you
because
know the line not to cross.
she asked me like about some of my guests and stuff like that. Like coming up on my show, I have John Hewitt coming on my show, and and for some people out there, he is the Hewitt of Jackson Hewitt, which is a big tax company, the big tax company and all that.
Yeah.
Jackson Hewitt. So I'm having him come on my show May 1st. He's going to be a guest, and my wife does taxes as one of her side hustles. She does taxes, and
She'll be
so
there.
she when she found out,
She's
she's like, she's like, you're interviewing John Hewitt. I said, yeah. She's like, okay. So she was surprised. She's like, oh man, like you're really growing. Like your podcast. I'm like, yeah, my podcast is pretty dope.
She's like, I know you're dope, but that podcast thing you got going on is pretty dope too.
Yeah.
That's dope. So what I'm going to ask of you now is just to give some advice to any podcasters, new podcasters that may be viewing or listening. Any tips that you would give them? Give them at least 2 tips that you would give them in podcasting as they start out that you maybe learn from.
Mm. Be consistent. So if you're gonna release an episode a week on Wednesdays, make sure every Wednesday you're releasing the episode. You have to be consistent because a podcast audience are very finicky, and if you start missing weeks, they'll go find someone else to listen to. So definitely be consistent and set a schedule. Um,
Yeah.
and then just love it.
Yeah.
Just love what you do. If find out what it is that you want to talk about. Find out what interests you. What is it that you love to talk about, and then talk about it.
Yeah. So I definitely want to thank you again, Wiz, for showing up on our show today and being very vocal and transparent with us. I think that's outside of your graphics. I think that's the characteristic that you have, and I want to wish you the best of luck and blessings going forward. But at this time, I want you to tell us where we can find your podcast, and you mentioned some merch, which you had not told me about. So I want you to tell us where we can get your merch and where we can find your podcast and all of those things.
Okay. You can actually find my merch on my YouTube channel. If you go to my YouTube channel, there's one of the spots where you can actually click on it and it'll take you to my Teespring page. But I'm on all major platforms. My podcast is on Spotify, Apple, Google, Podbean. Then I have the YouTube channel, Stuck in My Mind podcast YouTube channel. Then I also have my Real Wise TV YouTube channel where I host Mentality, a show that I do with my homeboy, my brother, one of my best friends, Cole Johnson. And then I also have Poppy J and Wize and Hefe is a show that I have with my nephew. And we explore. We're about to switch it up. We're about to come back with something that because he wants to discuss relationships. Also, he wants to because him being 50 years old and trying to maneuver through this dating scene. So he really wants to focus on how relationships for people in their 40s and 50s. So we'll be discussing more topics like that on our show. And then I'm always looking for up and coming podcasters or someone who's interested in wanting to start a show and help them launch their show as well.
Okay. Super dope. So I want to thank you again for being a guest with us today, and we definitely enjoyed you. Today was another episode, y'all, a super dope episode here on Tweet Talks, and we'll get back with you some more bangers. All right. So peace out. Y'all have a good evening. Tweet, y'all.
Peace out.